On Saturday, March 7th, 2020, after years of persecution by Chad, Stacy, and microtransactions, gamers finally rose up before being forced to swallow the biggest, reddest pill of all. We really do live in a society. The banning of the GamersRiseUp subreddit is a curious case, one deeply rooted in incel culture, unabashed racism, the Joker, and Posies Law. In the months that led up to the subreddit's banning, GamersRiseUp was a haven for Reddit's seedy underbelly, which can be difficult to distinguish from Reddit's seedy overbelly, aka everything else. Users with genuinely racist, sexist, and homophobic viewpoints had captured the subreddit and flooded it with incredibly unfunny JPEGs, all veiled under a layer of irony thinner than a bulimic on National Vomit Day. The only thing worse than the content were the comments, where users felt that ironic racism was slightly too much effort, and instead ripped into an ice-cold clan of racism classic. But it wasn't always this way. If you've watched my previous video on banned subreddits, you'll know that by 2020, Reddit's ban hammer was smoking hot, single, and ready to mingle. And a subreddit like GamersRiseUp should have been an easy target. So how did a community like this manage to slide under the radar? What finally made GamersRiseUp?
Together, we'll rise up. We can defeat anything.
Get what you fucking deserve!
The story of GamersRiseUp starts back in 2015 with the curious case of the incel. Incels, God's answer to the question, what if you tried to solve not getting laid by not getting laid even harder, had begun to cluster together in the same way that soap, hair, and semen cluster together in the drain of my shower. In case you had a good relationship with your parents, incel is short for involuntary celibate, a group of people, typically men, who desire some of daddy's fat cummies. Yet society as a whole won't let them socialize with a hole. Essentially, it's the nice guys finish last mentality, taken to an unhealthy extreme. An extreme that sees them cheering on the abuse and assault of women who won't give them pussy, and chads, the guys who are collecting all the pussy for themselves in beautifully designed burlap sacks. This brings us to the Joker. DC Comics' iconic villain, the Joker is the manifestation of nihilism and resentment towards the very same cold, uncaring society that cruelly locks beautiful women behind unfair social norms such as soap. Incels adopted the Joker as their patron saint of cringe, as they see in him a reflection of themselves, someone chewed up and spat out by society who, unlike them, has the gumption to rise up and do something about it. It's hard to say exactly when the incel infatuation with the Joker began, but Heath Ledger's explosive, award-winning performance in The Dark Knight is most likely to blame. Of course, watching The Dark Knight and idolizing the Joker is like idolizing Walter White or Tyler Durden or the Marvel Comics supervillain Adolf Hitler. So what does a freaking clown have to do with gamers? Well, unsurprisingly, there's a lot of crossover between the gaming and incel communities. Who would have thought that a hobby that involves sitting inside and sniffing your unwashed testes for sustenance would be comprised of dudes who can't get laid? It wasn't long before these two gave rise to a truckload of fucking cringy, fucking awful fucking memes. Know Your Meme has these Joker memes carbon dated to 2015. Roughly 2 years before irony was discovered. In the postmodern irony poison hellscape that is 2021, it's hard to imagine that this wasn't crafted by some off-the-grid meme runners creating PNGs in a pirated version of GIMP near the Mexican border. But all sources point to this being an image macro created by an authentic nice guy. While I'm almost certain this one is authentic, it sparked a massive wave of copycats and parodies, which are either very clearly taking the piss or ridiculous enough that the level of piss consumption can be difficult to determine. For our purposes, however, it really doesn't matter. The connection between the Joker and having 800 gigabytes of Overwatch sourcefile mod porn on your hard drive had been made, and the two were now forever intertwined. They made their way around in the time when cringe was at its peak, before the entire world decided to turn itself into one big cringe compilation. Enter r/GamersRiseUp, a subreddit born from the implications of the gaming Joker memes. Anyone who's been two doors over from anyone on Xbox Live since the day it was spritzed out of Bill Gates' squishy thought vagina will know that racism, sexism, and homophobia are alive and well in the headsets of malformed humanoids worldwide. Gamers Rise Up instead mock these gamers by role-playing as them, teasing the ease at which the person they're dominating in a Rust 1v1 drops the N-word. Very quickly, a sort of shared character was created and refined. One frickin' ticked off gamer who was sick of fake woman gamers ruining his hobby while simultaneously lusting over Veronica, that bitch from school who only goes after asshole jocks while ignoring nice guys like me. It's essentially a top secret government conspiracy to create the most finely crafted strawman argument in existence, and everyone had a good giggle in the process. The jokes, while at times edgy or risque, were buried under 6 feet of irony, and everybody, from the creators to the subreddit members, understood the joke and what it was making fun of. An image that appears to have women and minorities as the punchline could be misconstrued as sexist or racist, until you realise the punchline isn't at their expense, but at the sort of gamer who would genuinely hold these beliefs. What's important for both the story of the subreddit and life in general is to consider the context and intent of the person behind the joke. For example, a urinal in a bathroom is a great place to store piss for later, but when Marcel did... Alright, listen French people, just like change your names, alright? I'm sick of it. But when Marcel Duchamp submitted it as a work of art and presented it outside of its natural habitat in 1917, its context and therefore meaning had changed. The fuck are you looking at me for? You might think it's a fucking stupid meaning, but you can't deny that the way we see that porcelain substitute for your mum's mouth is significantly different. In my opinion, jokes are the same. It's as much who is saying it and where as what is being said. Of course, while your small community of hardcore meme machines might get the joke and the spoonful of mockery that makes it enjoyable, simple-minded visitors might not recognize the parodic nature of it and be disgusted, or worse, excited to have finally found someone like them. This brings us to Posies Law, one of the many unofficial rules of the internet that you've either encountered or made amends to avoid without even realizing it. You know, when you put it like that, it actually sounds kind of ordinary. Sort of like some ordinary...
Thanks, kudos. Okay, Posies Law. What is it? Posies Law is a phrase and observation of internet origin. It describes the mess people seem to get into when they try to parody extremism or similar brainworm-infected thinking online. It's named for its first observer, Nathan Poe, a denizen of that ancient internet ruin known as ChristianForums.com. During a hearty and I'm sure intellectual discussion on creationism, one forum poster outlined his vision for a 6,000-year-old Jeebus-created world, adding a winky face at the end to make sure people knew that he wasn't for reals. And Nathan Poe added that it was a good thing that he added that winky face, otherwise people might have thought he was being serious. And this is Posies Law. Any parody of extremism needs to be very clearly telegraphed lest you be mistaken for the thing what you're mocking. Kudos, could you add like a little sound effect when we...
Gamers Rise Up actively banned the use of unironic indicators, which only served to make it even more susceptible to Posies Law. From what I could tell, there wasn't anything in particular that sparked a massive influx of flux wits, and instead they just seemed to pile up over time. It should be noted that the original users didn't take kindly to their new neighbours, and often called out behaviour that they felt crossed the line from clearly ironic into damn, you're so committed to the joke that you even harass minorities in other subreddits too. If researching banned subreddits has taught me anything, it's that bigots grow in the corners of the internet like mould in the grout of your shower. And although I don't agree with complete censorship, I feel like telling people not to spam racial slurs is a fairly reasonable request. While the idea of a forum with no moderation and the ability to speak your mind is a nice idea in theory, watch literally any internet historian video for proof that internet users will take any inch you give them and stretch it into 6 inches like my fucking big fucking stupid... Even the creators of Parler, the supposed free speech alternative to Twitter had to put in a rule to stop their users from posting pictures of their feces under posts they disliked. Meanwhile, the general indifference of the GamersRiseUp moderation staff to stomp out genuine displays of hate speech that made little to no effort to even resemble a joke allowed these types of users to fester. Looking through the rules from near the end of the sub's life, there are multiple rules that went seemingly unenforced, especially those surrounding hate speech and breaking character. While many of these people would argue that they were just joking, I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere, right? Well, apparently the only lines being drawn were big floppy penises, because Reddit eventually decided that they could no longer afford to keep their irony specialist on a retainer to check whether each post was genuine or not. GamersRiseUp was banned on March 7th, 2020 for breaching the ever-vague rules against violent content and harassment. From what I can tell, there wasn't some explosive event that triggered this, and instead, the Reddit admins simply decided to pull the plug one day. In true Reddit fashion, a number of ban evasion subs were created and quickly squashed, as well as a subreddit that aimed to capture the early days of the gaming joker memes. While lacking a lot of the edge that made the early memes memorable, they are at least effective at stomping out genuine displays of hate speech, and as a result are still up to this day. If there's anything we can learn from racist gaming joker, which is a sentence I don't think I was ever going to say, it's the importance of knowing when to stop committing to the bit. I genuinely believe that touchy subjects like the ones on GamersRiseUp can be discussed and joked about in a good-natured way, as long as it's apparent who it's coming from. While I can at least respect their commitment to the bit, all of this could have been avoided if the moderation staff was willing to break character for at least 1 minute and just tell everyone, hey, can you just fucking... Ultimately, GamersRiseUp got what it fucking deserved.
Thanks, Kudo.
You know, this wasn't the first time they came after gamers. Check out this video about the ridiculous moral panics of Pokemon in the 90s.